Good afternoon. I think we're running late, so I'll try and be quick. First of all, I didn't put my Twitter handle. It's Madversity, and it only shows I'm still out of date. I see a lot of presenters doing that, and sorry about it. The second thing is that I also have what I call the wedding sari syndrome. You know, every time a woman wears a sari, she's dreading that someone else might be wearing it at the wedding. So when three people speak on the future of content, there's always this issue of whether there will be an overlap. A mild overlap can occur. Hopefully it's desirable because it reiterates some points. I loved Gautam's last slide, which touches upon some of the aspects that I want to talk about. Also, health warning. I work for Hindustan Times. I'm a journalist lost in, like, I don't know if I'm the cat among the pigeons or the pigeon among the cats, because it's full of branding and marketing kind of people. And I come from the journalistic community, which is historically claimed, imagined, or fantasized about having independence from the marketing community, but pays me my lunch, pays for my lunch. It's a bit like the relationship between the army and the government, on which we are talking a lot today. So, having issued these warnings, let me go right ahead. Why we are here today, all these metric, shetric confusions occur mainly because we are trying to constantly trying to find the relationship between the love and sex, the qualitative and the quantitative aspects of this whole business. Everything is under attack. That's what you got to contextualize yourself when we go further. Advertising is under attack because media is getting diffused. PR is not just about conventional media, and what I call lucid-generated content is an expression I never fail to use, because I come from what Gautam John called the high priest community. We are the Brahmins of the content business. We've always been paid to do what we do, so we don't like it when somebody comes and says, user-generated content, we are giving you an opportunity to write. You don't bloody need an opportunity to create chaos, so blah, blah, blah. So the long tail is there. People are consuming media, and therefore people are going there, so you have to engage with people, whether people are on Facebook, people are on Twitter, people are on YouTube, so everybody has to go there. It's like a royal, if you saw Sahib Bibi or gangster, if you're a feudal prince, suddenly there is democracy, there is a problem. So what we are having now is a situation very similar. There is democratization of content, and we have to re-engage in that. Okay, so I go straight to the rules because I'm trying to make it a very takeaway-oriented Domino's Pizza kind of a session. It's no longer about, just, horse to water. Now your job is to make it actually bloody drink. The old saying was that if you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Guess what? You've got to try that in the coming days. And for this, I temporarily, there are the metric grapplers here. So for them, I just heard about the brand buzz index, which is a lovely expression. I've created my own VQ and AQ. Can you measure the virality and the attention quotient? Very often, it's an intuitive point for somebody who creates content. As somebody who's been in the newspaper editor or a content creator, we always wonder, we've got to impress the editors and the readers and the viewers. So we've always been grappling with this intent of how to impress people. Although we claim to provide objective content, the fact is that you want most people to discuss it. Classic example is today's Indian Express, which has come out with a controversial story on an army coup of sorts. I was just tweeting this morning, why would you care about a newspaper whose circulation is less than my Twitter follower count? I said it tongue-in-cheek, but the idea is there are two underlying purposes. First of all, metrics isn't everything. It's also about who's following you or who's reading you. On the other hand, there is also this question of creating the buzz. If somebody creates a buzz in the age of social media, they're good enough. So if a newspaper with a lower circulation today creates a buzz, it's trending. Okay? So you got to take the second thing is what I call the pizza principle. What does a pizza company do? Pizza, the margarita is the base, but you got to constantly address different kinds of audiences. As the fragmentation of the media is now very, very real, the one size fits for all approach never worked anyway, but it's truer than ever before that you'll now need customization of content. But customization is easier said than done, whether it's measuring for a brand or whether it is creating content for the audiences, because everything costs money, time, energy, resource. So we have to constantly grapple and come out with new formula to do it at optimal cost points and effort points. More the customization, better it is, but there is a techno-economic problem we have. You have to measure your cost and return in this whole business. And as you know, toppings are important. You can create toppings as you go. There are various kinds of toppings. All the foreign brands that make pizza have Indianized the content. You know, there is paneer pizza and God knows how many. So they are the people to learn from, not from some Time magazine or New York Times, which is mortgaged its building, you know. This is something that I exclusively crafted for this IndiaSocial session. Everybody talks about the form factor, you know. We're talking about this screen, that screen, big screen, smartphone, tablet. But I think ultimately it's about how people react to the content. I do a lot of experimentation on Twitter and Facebook. I'm active not just because I'm having fun. It's also because for me it's what I call editorial R&D. I try to find out what turns people on. You know, I act like a venture capitalist with every tweet I do. I throw a tweet and say, I take a guess. This is going to get 8 retweets for me. Some of them get 30 and some of them get zilch. And I learn. So why? Because I'm measuring the feelings of the people. Ultimately, communication is about reaching across to people. So there's a lot that I can do on that topic. Content is received inside your brain, heart, and mind. You know, I believe there is an ancient Sanskrit science of communication, which I haven't read, you know, but I'm trying to discover it. It's called Sputaka Shastra or something, which says that communication is always completed in the brain, you know, in the minds of the others. So you've got to find out how they are feeling. So but at the same time, the whole form factor is completely gone because it's no longer about just the size of the screen. Once you get the attention, people can hang around with you for hours, and if you don't get an attention, they switch off. Whether it's a TV remote or a mouse click, they switch off. So, I mean, forget the form. The entire 20th century was about a shortage of media time and media space. So you created formats to suit these things. You had the A4 paper, you had a 30-second commercial, you had a Berliner-sized newspaper that people could hold on to if you look at the Mint today. So we were talking a lot about form because there were certain convenience issues related to either at the spending end of cost or at the receiving end. All those things are going away. If somebody likes one blog, they will hang around it for hours, and otherwise they'll skip. Now this is very important. We are in a Kumbh Mela situation, you know. Indians, I found the best metaphor for me to express this whole content chaos is the Kumbh Mela in India. I took both these photos from the Kumbh Mela collections. This is what people want, really, and this is what they're up against. So it's pretty peculiar. Everybody talks about, you know, this is why I'm saying stop glorifying user-generated content. It's the easiest way that some techies thought that they will ride piggyback on others' content. And this slide will tell you that that honeymoon is over. Last week, Google launched Play.Google. It's a content discovery site. There are lots of apps floating out there. I wrote my latest column, which is called Take It Easy, on just about half a dozen reading applications on the tablets and desktops, and I had to cut out some paras because there were so many applications. And applications are not really content. Apps are supposed to help you discover further content, and some of that content may be static, some of it may be dynamic, and if we are heading for a future of mashups. I'm sorry, we're really running. I think there's a full industry to be in content discovery. We should keep an idea. Your investments will go waste if your content discovery doesn't match up content creation. I call it the Kumbh Mela syndrome. And then we know this, branding, we have discussed this also, I'm not going to go too much into it. It's not, and in fact, I have gone beyond that, we all know that it's not about whether people remember you, but how they remember you. And the only problem is that everybody seems to know it now. Even your rivals have the same toolkit. So if you're in a competitive industry, you've got to find out how do I take it to the next level. So the interesting thing is that branding is increasingly about CRM as well. So this, I think, enough has been said, so I'll skip this. Now, this is my favorite point. If brands have to engage with content, what do? 20th century was all about trying to find good content and getting a backseat in there in the form of an advertising, whether it's a promo or a advertisement in the middle of a show or a soulless position in a newspaper. Guess what? You can actually turn the whole game upside around. Instead of becoming advertisers, you can become sponsors of content. And I think Gitanjali will be speaking after me. I met her at the Coke studio. And it's a fascinating way how Coca-Cola has created content. And guess what? Binaka is hardly here in India as a toothpaste product, but 3 generations remember it as a brand. You hear it, there are people here who've heard it from the grandparents about Binaka Geet Mala, way ahead of its times. You can't find the product, but if somebody is waiting to invest in a brand, they need it. It's done. So, and I also noticed that some of the elements of the branding will also have to be related to a stakeholder approach as opposed to just a consumer approach. ITC Sangeet Research Academy. If you want to be well regarded as a brand in certain circles, let's say shareholders or government policy makers or something, then you have to create content that suits that particular stakeholder group. So, Boonvita quiz contest, it's still associated now with the brain. So, school kids are ensured for a long time. The brand association with a certain kind of content for a certain kind of audience is very, very critical. But the important thing to remember is that if you sponsor the right content, you may be saving a huge amount of money in chasing various kinds of ad spots and displays and all. So a well-invested content is worth its weight in gold. And of course, my favorite theme is abandoned demographic obsession, because there was this business of slicing and dicing people. I think we are coming on to a new world where people have multiple identities. So who am I depending upon what I'm wearing now, what I'm talking now. And the stereotyping of people was never too desirable. We did it too much in the 20th century. It became politically incorrect, but it was very helpful to the advertising industry. You assume that every youngster is hanging out on coffee day or dancing the salsa. No, sorry. Yesterday I had a Facebook friend. Her status message was about Gothic novel writing. I mean, how much, so please unbundle identities. Try and engage more sensitively. Yeah. And this is my favorite, this thing. Good content can shape culture instead of riding it. We were all the time trying to talk about how can I get a foothold into that content. But if you create great content, take a gamble. It's like, if you go to Wall Street and invest in a company, you can invest on the basis of a price to earnings ratio. But if you're a venture capitalist, you can invest in some futuristic technology and ride a huge wave. So for a lot of brand kind of people, it's about shaping culture like a venture capitalist, or just riding culture, piggyback like an old-fashioned, boring investment bankers, and you'll get into a Goldman Sachs situation someday. Okay? And the important thing is to have a repurposing of the content, if you can, or if you need to, restructure it and relate to. There's a lot that you can do, play around with in the content business. Content is a lot like water. You can sell it as ice, you can sell it as steam. So try and think more flexibility. This I stole from somewhere, but I loved it. Relevance, value, and potentiality, all three are very critical in getting the content in. I think that's pretty much in, because my time's up, I guess. Do I have more time? No. No, really. Thanks. I'll be happy to take brickbats and questions offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhavan.